Howdy.
So you currently are not a vegan, right? That's
That
that's where
is
you're at.
that is correct.
Okay. Now, obviously, if we replaced all the animals in the factory farms with humans, you would say that it would be morally wrong
You
by
can
your
we can
ethical
skip
system.
a few steps here. I include animals in my ethical system. I agree that meat eating is morally unjustifiable.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Well, then we might not
we
have.
can skip a few steps. I'm not believes meat eating is fine. I'm knows veganism is correct and is too much of a moral hypocrite to go forward with it.
Oh, okay. Well, honestly, Vaush, I don't know how much I'm gonna have to say to you then. I'm not like a psychologist here who can come in and work your brain. But if you actually agree the position is correct, that makes sense, right?
No,
You're gonna
no.
say,
What we do is like unironically monstrous. With the factory farming. In fact, I'd probably go so far as to say that all of the misery humans have ever inflicted on one another throughout history probably pales in comparison to what we're doing to animals right now. It's actually unforgivably bad. My argument here, and this is one of defending hypocrisy, so I recognize my bias in this respect. But the argument that I would have here is comparable to the argument I would make for not, for example, telling people not to buy T-shirts that were made in China. It's that we live in a system of such unfathomably inhuman production, and it's so convenient to adhere to the unethical modes of production in which we live that I don't know if I can condemn a person ethically on an individual level for participating in systems that are so much larger than them, you know?
Okay, I can answer that. So it's important to acknowledge where someone is either unaware of or incapable of following a vegan lifestyle, that they are not individually responsible for the act of eating meat, even though the act itself is still unethical. But we should be wary of extending that lack of individual responsibility away from extreme situations, like being stranded on a desert island, for example, to today where a lot of industry happens to be unethical. Because even if we grant there's a better system we can move to such that all consumption under capitalism currently is unethical, there exists a scale of immorality such that we hope once people become aware of particularly bad industries, they will get on board with living a low impact vegan lifestyle. So there's two things. One, there's the potential harm in playing down the effectiveness of the vegan boycott, because a really important positive attribute to acknowledge about this lifestyle is it's a broad food category that in its whole food form is easy to distinguish on the shelf. Therefore, experimenting with the diet doesn't need to feel like a burden to take on board in the same way researching and seeking out conflict-free minerals in everything you buy can be, for example. And two, the potential harm in exaggerating exceptions to the rule of individual responsibility. But yeah, you accept buying animal products is unethical. It's just a case of some of the individual responsibility gets shared more evenly with the collective society for, say, voting in political parties which maintain the status quo, which in turn alienates socially conditions you into not having full agency.
Yes. I'm not believes meat eating is fine. I'm knows veganism is correct and is too much of a moral hypocrite to go forward with it.
Cool. So yeah, you just have a critique of where activists put their energy.
Yes. I just think advocacy is more effective when it's being done outside of the demand by consumers. I don't think there's any likelihood or any possibility of getting the vast majority of people off of their meat diets. It's very deeply ingrained into some people's culture. You know, Americans love their fucking burgers. I think that a broad, top-down, systemic approach towards destroying the meat industry might be a more effective way in the long run. Or increasing the price of meat production so much the vast majority of people can't afford it. That would also be a very heavy tax.
Well, I would say existing as a vegan in the world is this really positive step to showing your seriousness and dedication you're willing to put in. So then being better able to find each other and get organized. For example, people's willingness to start a food not bomb stall or guerrilla garden. Secondly, it's not the case that we need to win over everyone's veganism in order to make massive change. If a large enough minority can create breathing room for legislation and food co-ops on the way to a vegan world, I do think it's both an obligation to attempt it and to make the transition easier, saving humans and wildlife, as well as driving less buying secondhand, etc. Thirdly, boycotts have the effect of bringing communities together under a liberation politics. For example, car sharing during the Montgomery bus boycott, students leading the call to stop subsidizing Israel, and before that South Africa. The widespread boycotting of a reactionary tabloid newspaper in the UK that ran stories saying mass suffocation at a football stadium due to overcrowding and fences were the fans' fault. So boycotting to show your real felt ties to the land you stand on as necessary optics for seriousness on the left. And finally, I'd just say there's a way you could take this concern for shifting the blame onto individuals too far the other way, in that I think we'd agree if someone was obscenely rich and spent all their money on luxury items, never donating to campaigns or charities that we would need to bring about a better society, you would think badly of this person because they would be displaying the same indifferent behaviour you'd expect of someone who, say, participated in systemic racism. For example, excluding a generationally low-income black friend with no car from playing on your sports team by never seeing it as your responsibility to offer to drive to pick them up so they can join in.
Yes. Whatever the case is, be interested in discussing them with you in the future.
Great. And also, if you could, look into some animal rights news stories to cover on your stream. I do think there's a lot of damning political stories which would do the job of bringing people further left, as well as hopefully towards veganism. I'll leave some links in the description so you can take a look at them. All right, take care.
Yes. I would be interested in discussing it as well. Have a good one, okay?